Some market segments will increase in price, inventory, and absorption rate this fall, while others will absolutely plummet. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Last Honest Realtor podcast. I'm your host, David Fleming. Thank you so much for joining me here today on what is the second episode this fall. In case you missed it last week, or I guess it was 2 weeks ago, just before Labor Day, we put out our first video for the fall in the Last Honest Realtor series where we looked ahead to the fall market. Now, I wouldn't say it was so much predictions in nature, maybe discussion points, if you will. If you're looking for more things to do while wasting time, check out Toronto Realty blog. I did a 2-part series called Burning Questions for the fall market, where I looked at, of course, the burning questions, the things that I'm always wondering as we move into the fall. Now, this week, as you probably saw from the title, we're going to talk about market segments. Now, why are the market segments important? You're going to find out shortly via the 5 that I am looking at. But I believe that these are important because they're going to tell us a tale about the overall market. Now, point about me, in case it's not incredibly obvious, I am an incredible stats nerd. I love statistics. In fact, I'm going to overshare here. I follow every single statistic in every single sport. I update spreadsheets regularly. I print them and I put them in a booklet, and that is what I read in bed at night when I can't fall asleep. True story. I don't watch tennis, but damn if I'm not going to update the US Open tab in my spreadsheet at the end of next week. So I love statistics. Now, why? I love looking for patterns. I love trends. I love analysis. When it comes to real estate, I've always found myself drawn to statistics. So in today's podcast, we're going to go over some of these statistics, and I'm not going to bore you with too many, but I will tell you in advance, call it a fair warning, if you will, that some of this will be data heavy because, of course, I think that it tells a tale for those, and we all absorb information in different ways. Some of us are visual, some of us are auditory, some people like to see a picture, some people like to see numbers, but it tells a tale about the market. And where we are in the market right now is sort of in a holding pattern, if you will. A lot of people watch this podcast and they cheer the market down. We're going to talk about that later. People love, what is it called? Schadenfreude? Okay, my German's a bit rusty. But other people, well, they're thinking about getting into the market, or maybe they're already in the market and they want to make a move and they watch this to sort of figure out what the market is doing. That's what I'm always trying to do. And as we move into the fall, which is very short, it's only September, October, and November, unlike the so-called spring market, which is effectively January through June, the fall market is intense. It starts quickly and it ends quickly. And I want to know these 5 market segments, as I'm about to discuss with you today, what they're going to tell us about the overall market. So I hope you and yours had a great first day of school. We're in September now. Never liked the first day of school. Always felt just a little bit colder. You know, the grass had some dew on it. It's pretty obvious right now. Summer's over, although to be honest, I did wear shorts and a t-shirt to the office today. So NFL football is starting. That is great. Labor Day came on the 1st this year. That means to me we're basically on hold for a week. Usually you don't want to list your property for sale in the first week of September. It's a bit slow. As I mentioned in the intro there, people are, of course, putting kids back in school. We have all of the different schools, the public, the private, they have different start dates. There's all kinds of half days and such, and then people are taking extended vacations. So the first point I'm making today is that the market's really not going to ramp up until the 2nd or maybe even 3rd week of September. So the 5 market segments that I want to talk about, the very first one I'm going to look at is entry-level freehold in the 416. Now, what is entry-level? I mean, first of all, what is freehold? It's a house. It's not a condo. It's not a condo town. We're talking about houses. But what is entry-level? It's a bit of a moving target. You could very much typecast this as a 3-bed, 2-bath semi for between $900,000 and $1.2 million. Regardless of what price it is, the reason it's important to me is because this very simply used to be the holy grail of real estate. So let's take us back, whether it's 2018 or whether it's 2022. You're a real estate agent and you've got a listing for a house that's worth $1.1 million in the east side of Toronto. Congratulations. That is absolutely positively going to sell. The question is only how many offers and how much. You take that at $8.99, you put it out, you get your 14 offers, boom, donezo. The funny thing about that is, as great as a market segment, and as that was, as I said, the holy grail as a real estate agent, that market was really, really tough in the spring of 2025. Now, it's not just the 416, and I've put some notes here. I want to go back to 2024. We had a place, and I usually don't give out addresses, but because this was a while ago, I might as well. So we had a house on Grenor in Mississauga. I think it was $899. I think we had like 19 or 20 offers. That was February of 2024. We had a house in Scarborough on Painswick. I believe we were $899 and got like 1.2. We had 20 offers. That was March of 2024. We had a house on Lloyd Manor in Mimico, March of 2024. We got multiple offers. And then we had a complete gutter being sold in as-is condition in Brampton on Leander. That was April of 2024. And again, we had about 20 offers. So point I'm making here, guys, is that while I talk about 2018 or 2022 and how great that market was for entry level, those prices I gave you in the $899, $999, selling for $1,112, the point is that continued into 2024 because I just showed you those 4 houses. But more importantly, my first point here is about entry level freehold in the 416, and those are 4 houses I showed you in Mississauga, Scarborough, Mimico, and Brampton. Now let's fast forward to 2025. Here's where I won't give out addresses because it's still kind of fresh. We start 2025. We have a house that's worth about $1.4 million in Leslieville. Absolute green light special. It was a tough sell. These guys bought it a couple years ago. Maybe the buyer pool looked at it and said, well, why are they selling? Well, what did they pay? There were reasons why it was tough. But we had, and I remember this, Tara did the open house. And she sent me a photo. Now I'm going to knock the younger generation, right? She sent me a photo of the shoes by the front door. And it was like 30 pairs of Bluntstones. And of course, it was like, you know, this generation, they're all so unique, but they're all wearing the same pair of shoes. Point is, we had 30 people through the open house on each of Saturday and Sunday, but every single one of them said that they own a condo. They've got to sell their condo in order to buy the house. So that was our first clue. And then we had a house, and so that one eventually did sell. We had an offer night. I think we got 4 offers, didn't accept any of them, and we ended up grinding it out. We sold about a week later. So then we had a house in Monarch Park. So let's say south of Danforth, north of Monarch Park. This one, same thing. Absolutely gorgeous house. Extension off the main floor, super deep kitchen. And this was sort of in that 1.3 to 1.4 range. And it was really tough. Once upon a time, guys, we would have had 20 offers on this house. But I think we had 4 offers and we did sell an offer night. It wasn't for as much as the sellers wanted. Go figure. But that one was a grind. Then, oh, this was interesting. This was sort of around the fallout of Trump and tariffs. I want to say this was February, March. So here's a fun story, and I've told this in a few podcasts and pick fives. We list this property for, I think, $999 or $1,099,000, and again with an offer date. So I get a bully offer, and the bully offer is $1,250,000. And so an agent calls me and he says, "Hey, I'm just calling on this property. I see you got a bully offer." I said, "Yeah, I think we're going to work with it." So keep in mind, I said $1,250,000. And he says to me, "Well, if you're going with a bully offer, I imagine it's got to be over like 115." And I'm like, no, it's higher. It's like, you know, mid 1.2s. And the screech in this guy's voice, he said, "What are you, crazy?" And he said, "Are you crazy? Take it. And then he says a line that will live in infamy. He says, "The whole east side just went up for sale yesterday." And that was a really tough market. That was March, April. Everything was for sale. And yes, we did take the offer, $1,250,000, but that one was a grind too. So then we go, there's a long list of them here, guys. Then we go to another house in Leslieville. And this one too, in that sort of 1.4 range, where they said, you know, 1.4 is our floor. We'd really love 1.5. We get to offer night. Highest offer is 1.35. Super disappointed. They go to bed, wake up the next morning. The guy that offered 1.35 comes up to 1.4. We do a deal, but that was a grind. Then we get another one in Leslieville. Our target was 1.2. We listed it $999. And an offer night, we got one offer of $10.50. Sellers are going absolutely crazy. They're in tears. They can't believe it. What's happening? They've already bought. Guys, this is what the spring market was like. And I will indulge the folks that are watching this and they hate real estate. They hate real estate agents. They say, you shouldn't be allowed to not take the highest offer and you shouldn't not be allowed to relist. I have absolutely no time for that or for you. That's just absolutely silly. Call me a libertarian. No one's going to force anyone to do anything, to sell your house for anything. Understand the game. Don't hate it. Understand it. Master it. You don't know how to play chess? Don't hate the people that do. Here comes the comment. How are you comparing chess to selling real estate? Fine. I'm no Bobby Fischer here. But the point is, if you list for $9.99, you get one offer $9.99. You don't have to accept it, nor should you be forced to. I hate when people suggest that. You just want the government to tell you what to do in every single aspect of your life. Okay. Good point, David. So one more. We have another property. This is back up to Monarch Park. This is the exact same thing, right? You get one offer on offer night of the list price. They're not going to take it. They don't have to. They've underlisted it based on what they think. Now, the argument it's worth what someone's willing to pay, yeah, sure. Except 2 days after the offer date, which did not bear fruit, we ended up getting an offer of $200,000 over our list price, and we sold it. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those were properties that were all on the east side, all in that sort of 1.2 to 1.4 range. Every single one of them was a grind. Once upon a time, this was the easiest market in which to sell. And it had the most demand. So where is the demand? Now, I mentioned all the folks that showed up to that first Leslieville open house that all of them said that they've got to sell a condo. Maybe, just maybe, that's why this market segment's been sluggish. Now, we had a company meeting the other day, or a meeting for some of the agents in a think tank situation, and Chris made an interesting point. He said he remembered that open house because I think he did the Sunday, and he said every single young person that came through that had a condo, they all did that sort of like, but you have to see mine. Mine's different. Mine's different. I have a view, or I have an outdoor space, or our building has a bowling alley. I get it, right? We're all unique snowflakes. But eventually what ended up happening throughout the year was all these would-be condo sellers sort of realized, okay, you know what? My unit's not different, and I'm going to have to face the market reality. So listen, you want to hang on to it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you'll be made whole, you'll make a profit, it'll be great. But if you want to sell it now so you can go and buy a house, you paid $600, market peak, it's worth $550 now or $540. Sell it, eat the loss. You've got real estate fees, you've got legal fees, you've got land transfer taxes, you've got moving, but you're trying to buy that house for 1.2 that might have been 1.4. You're buying and selling in the same market. No one wants to do that. You want to have your cake and eat it too? Yes. And that is exactly what happened in the spring. So this entry-level 416, this is a market segment that I'm watching more than anything else. I'm looking at list to sale ratios, and because I'm absolutely insane and work comes before anything else. Who are those people that I was telling this to the other day? Oh, my family. I actually was making a list in the spring of every single one of these houses in that entry-level price point and the offer dates. Offer date success or failure rate, oh, that's a stat. That is a delicious, delectable stat. Treb's not exactly counting that and putting it in the Treb Market Watch, but that's the kind of thing that I want to know. What are we looking at in terms of success on offer nights? So we just listed a place for $799. We've had 5 showings. We have an offer date. Now, it's not egregiously underlisted. It's not $799 looking for 1.1, but it's been slow. And again, it's the first week. So let's look at that market segment because, as I said, to me, the Holy Grail that is now faltered, that's the number one. That's the number one market I want to look at. And I also think it's cool because it plays into the condo market for a lot of these folks that have to sell their condo. One final thought on this. The folks that did, I mentioned that story about the guy that offered 135 on a house in Leslieville, came back up to 1.4. He sold his condo first, put it in the market in January, took 4 months. His sister was his real estate agent. She came to me and she said, listen, my guy's already sold his condo. Right? Good for him. You're going to see a lot more of that moving forward. Now, the second market segment that I'm looking at this fall is what I call the forever home, the move-up home. That could mean many different things to many different people. But folks, it's the $3 million house. Now, I have a note and I want to go back here. I'm going to open with this. What did David say? These people aren't waiting. They don't care what random YouTubers in comment sections think. Why don't we just get that out of the way? People are buying $3 million houses, and the people that hate real estate and are cheering the market down, maybe they know something you don't. Just saying. Now, the reason I think that this market is important, this market segment is really important, is because, and I'm going to go back to, this was 2024. I'm working with clients. They're looking in Leaside. We lose in competition on a 2.8 house that sells for 315. There's 5 offers. That was in the fall of 2024. What is happening in that price point that is making a house sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars over the list when it's already in the luxury price point? The intersection of supply and demand. So say what you want about the real estate market. Active listings are an all-time high. Yes, I get it. Sales are an all-time low. Absolutely. But what's happening in that price point? Because these are not stupid people. The people buying $3 million houses, they didn't get to this point by dumb luck. They've done something right. And there is a dearth of quality inventory. So I've put a note here, Leaside. Leaside's a good example. I do a lot of work in that area. 3 million to me is the number. If you're in a semi in Leaside, you're worth 1.4 to 1.7, or say you're on the east side, you're in that Leslieville, or you're in that Danforth Village, same-ish, 1.2 to 1.6. What's a 30-foot front by 120 deep, 4-bed, 4 to 5 bath, 12-year-old custom home in Leaside worth? It's worth between 2.8 and 3.3, roughly speaking. That's the move up. That's the forever home. This is why I'm interested in this price point. What are these people doing? Are these people waiting for what? The market, Trump and tariffs, unemployment? No, they're buying. And I'll tell you another story. This one I always tell my wife, pizza night. Okay? This is what's happening. I show my clients a house. It's listed for 3.3-ish. It's in Leaside. And the reason I call it pizza night is because I went home to do that thing we always talk about, being a father. And my daughter's got all her friends there and the parents are there and there's pizza. Oh no, I had to run out to get pizza. This is the story. And as soon as I get in my car, I'm going to pick up the pizza at Maker Pizza because they only deliver smalls and not larges. That really bothers me. As soon as I get in the car, my phone rings and it's the real estate agent. It's the listing agent. And she says, hey, there's another offer and I've only got 30 minutes on this one. It's what I refer to as pizza night in my household. My wife puts up with a lot. We talk about real estate constantly. Those buyers lost in competition on a $3.3 million house. Crazy. And it's funny because these guys were out at a spa, and I'll never forget, they sent me a photo of the two of them in robes with their laptop on the hood of their car docu-signing our revised offer. $3.3 million, and they lost in competition. That's why I'm so interested in this market segment. There's not enough quality inventory. That was a great house. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the best house in the city of Toronto. But in that price point, in that area, which I mentioned is Leaside, there's just not enough inventory. Now, there are a lot of overpriced builder homes. There are a lot of overpriced resale homes. So you take a house that's 3.6 that's on a busier street. I'm not going to name names because there are a few of them out there. They might be $3.35 million to account for that busy street. And the homeowner, no, I know what my house is worth. We've heard that before. Sure, that's not quality inventory. I'm talking about good street, great school district, phenomenal house, and priced at market. That property was in the market for 2 days, and we lost. We lost in competition on a $3.3 million house. Now, another story I have clients that just paid $4 million for a house. That's their forever home. They're going to sell their existing house, which is worth 2.5. It's a great house, but now is the time. Now is the time they decided to strike. Well, they did it in the summer. So the cynical side of me says all this negativity and all this talk about, the market, it's so bad and prices are going to drop 80% and people be giving houses away. And I'd be lying if I said I tuned out the noise. I'm just interested to know what the other half thinks. Guys, there's a dearth of quality inventory in that price point. And I am watching this $3 million market segment. I have 2 more active buyers right now that are in this pocket, that are very active, that want to make this move. And I'm very interested to see what happens in here. So as I said, don't get me wrong. There's garbage in that price point. There's overpriced stuff. I did a full podcast talking about how builders price. We interviewed this one guy, said your house is worth 3.5. said, I want 4 million. I was like, it's not worth it. And by 3.5, I meant probably 3-4. He ends up listing for 4.2 million with a 905 agent that just bought the listing. As we say, bought the listing means you give them a high price and they're like, oh, great. And they sign with you. It's been on the market for 5 months. It's been reduced in price. It's still overpriced. It's not going to sell. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about quality inventory in the $3 million price range where those buyers are saying now is the time that I want to get out of my semi, my entry-level starter, and I want to plant very deep roots. We have one coming out in Moore Park. It's a listing. It's 4 million. Needs work, but it's Moore Park, and it's on a prime street, and it's on a 200-foot lot. What's the action going to be like on that house? So you tell me it sits on the market. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But I don't think that it will. In fact, I think it's going to get serious interest because it presents what? An opportunity. And those opportunities are few and far between. Now, the third market segment I want to talk about, and this one is super important because it is super saturated, one-bedroom condos. What could be more boring right now than a one-bed, one-bath condo? I don't know. But this is fascinating to me because the intersection of supply and demand here, you simply cannot imagine how this equation has evolved. If you look at absorption rates in the condo market, and I have this statistic here. So here's where, remember I told you we're going to talk a lot about stats, and I thought not too much because I don't want to lose you. But if you want to talk about absorption rates, humor me here. Let's just pick, I don't know, we just came out of August. Let's pick August of 2021. The absorption rate in the 416 condo market was 69%. It was in the 30s last month. The absorption rate is half of what it was. So pick a random month. Okay, let's say, this is wild. February of 2021, the absorption rate was 90%. Absorption rate is the ratio of sales to new listings, for those of you who aren't aware. Now, 90.5%. And then in 2025, it was 30.9%. That's brutal. That's like a third. That is where the market was. And you can't imagine what it was like, guys, to list a one-bedroom condo and have 14 offers. We were in that market. Now, you could say that that's based on what? Again, I always talk about the cynical viewpoint. I love framing something in two different lights. You could say it was fake. It was based on interest rates. It was based on speculators. It was based on foreign buyers. No, it was based on market. It's based on market dynamics. That's what it was. It was the intersection of all of those things. Yes, interest rates were low. Yes, it was pre-foreign buyer ban. Yes, there were investors, there were speculators, there was all kinds of different things, but those were all part of the market. It's the reality of what happened. And now we're in a different reality, which is that rates went up, foreign buyers for what they're worth, and I don't think that they were as involved as people suspect. But yeah, there's a foreign buyer ban. There's foreign buyer taxes. I think the people that want to buy are still working their way around it. You know, put it in someone else's name, fine. And there's fear, which wasn't out there. Now, in 2021, it was fear of missing out. So you better buy because the market's going up. It's doing this. Your friend Becky, who, spins with you, she just bought a place. I mean, Becky's buying a place. I need to buy a place. But now it's a complete opposite. Dwight, that guy at your office, he's talking constantly about how bad the market is. Well, geez, he's a pretty smart guy. I don't want to go and jump into the market right now. It's all about what everyone else is doing. And I hate to say that we're a sheep, mentality in society, but that was the condo market then, and this is the condo market now. So you look at these statistics and you say, you can't wrap your head around it. Imagine a time when I brought out a unit at 230 King Street East. I always pick this building. It's King and Sherbourne. It's a nice building. I lived there for a period of time. Imagine bringing out a condo for $499 and having 14 offers and selling it for $610. That is exactly the way it worked in 2020, 2021, 2022. And we are absolutely not there now. Now, if you talk about active listings, which we do quite a bit, this puts the market into context. There were 30,000 plus active listings. I think it was last month. And by the way, Treb Stats literally came out an hour before we started filming this. But over 30,000 active listings for, I think it was April, May, June, and July. That's a lot. Put that in context. Historically, the average is around 18,000 between 2002 and current. So our inventory is absolutely sky high. But there was a time when every single one bed, one bath condo came out and had an offer date. And I'm talking the stuff that I don't even like. I'm talking about something down at, City Place, Okay, I'm not going to name any name. What a 4K Spadina? You know you've made it when you're building as a letter. 4K Spadina. 12J Bathurst. No, that doesn't ring any bells. But these are the buildings that I've never put a buyer in Mariner Terrace. I've never put a buyer in Navy Wharf. Guy watching this right now, he's adding my list. People I don't like. David goes back to his front door at Navy Wharf. I've never put a buyer in there. My point is, this is the part of the market that was getting multiple offers. And I just could not make sense of it. 230 King Street, yeah, I'm biased. I live there. But that, I get when there's no inventory out there. But my God, people would come into the office and be like, oh, I lost some competition last night. Where were you? 12Q Spadina? Like, I didn't even know that existed. We're not there now. So I put a note here. Even my first condo sold in 2010, 7 offers. My brother's 13 offers, 168 King Street. That was an eternity ago. So the resale condo market, flood of listings right now, is due to 3 things as I see it. Small investors exiting. Either they can't make their payments or they're just scared, whatless. Fear selling, well, that kind of plays into what I just talked about, whether you're on the resale side or whether you're an investor. And the pre-con completions. We've talked about this. I don't even want to get into it, but you, for some reason, bought a pre-construction condo. Congratulations, I've never sold one in 21 years. House of cards waiting to plummet. And you paid $700,000 and then you finally closed on it and you can't afford it and now you're selling it for $550. Or you put it up for $700, which we call dummy inventory. If a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? That is a lot easier to answer than if you have a condo worth $500 and it's listed for $700, does it even exist? But a lot of the inventory is that. So I'm not trying to excuse away the number of active listings. I'm not trying to excuse away the sheer amount of 1-bed, 1-bath condos that are out there. But a lot of it is that dummy inventory. And then Chris said to me the other day, there's a unit that Bremner, right? I've never put a buyer in there. But Bremner, he's like, these guys paid $750. They're on the market for $599. I said, I don't know if that's a deal. When they paid $750 at the height in 2022, what was it worth? That's where, and that's a 1-bedroom. That's where the condo market is now. So the reason this is an important segment to watch, guys, for me, is because it speaks to the health of the overall market. Now, it is a segment within it. We can talk about $3 million houses. Who cares about 1-bed condos, right? We could talk about $1.3 million entry-level freehold. Who cares about 1-bedroom condos? You need to care. It's a major part of the market. And sucks to say, hope I'm not bursting any bubbles for the folks watching it, 10 years from now, most people are gonna live in a condo. So yeah, it's an important part of the market and it's a very important segment to watch. So in this space last month, I talked about the condo absorption rate and how it had gone up year over year, every month this year. From January through, I'm looking at it here, June, it had been lower year over year. But guess what? Sorry, May I meant. In June, it went up. In July, it went up. And in August, it went up. And I said last month, is this a trend? I mean, 2 months in a row wasn't really a trend. But now that we see in August, that makes 3 months in a row, feels like a trend to me. So I'm not in any way bullish on the 1-bed, 1-bath condo market. But that is an interesting statistic, which I brought up last week. And that is something that I am watching as well. Now, my 4th market segment to watch this fall, this one isn't so much a segment of real estate, as was the first one, entry-level freehold, as was the second one, $3 million move-up homes, as was the third one, 1-bedroom condos. This is a segment of market participants, simply put, young buyers. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I received not 1, not 2, but 3 inquiries in the last week of August and the first week of September from young buyers looking to enter the market. All 3 of them had the same kind of shtick, which is sort of self-deprecating, like, well, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing here, but I want to look at my options. They're scared. And a colleague of mine, won't name names, she's a huge TikTok real estate star. She works with a lot of young buyers. I mean, I actually don't work with that many, but they all came through TRB, on a Realty blog. She was telling me that she's had 6 people reach out. That to me is a trend. That's not a coincidence. And I had to put that in there because I'm very curious to see what these folks are going to do. Now, ironically, I feel as though there's almost a counter culture, if you will, or a counter movement that young people shouldn't be doing this because all the other young people are banded together screaming real estate's too expensive, life's too hard, it's not fair. And that was kind of exacerbated by an article I saw on the weekend in the Toronto Star. The headline says, in Toronto, cheering when homeowners sell at a loss has now become a spectator sport. Is that a bad thing? Is that rhetorical? Yeah, I'd say that's a bad thing. Since when is taking pleasure in the misgivings of other a bad thing? The Etobicoke red brick detached home was on the market for 40 days this summer. After multiple price adjustments, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath finally went for $1,545,000, over $500,000 less than when it was last sold, near the height of the Toronto real estate market in spring of 2022. The reaction? Excellent. This was just one post of many from the nearly 5,000 members of a group on Reddit, an assortment of niche online communities with their own discussion forums and subcultures called House Sigma Blunders. Really? Really? This is what we're doing as a society now? Listen, I get it. Toronto's a city of haves and have-nots. Canada's a country of haves and have-nots. The entire world is. But this is crazy to me. And I'd hate to draw this comparison. But you know what the first thing I thought of when I saw this? A bunch of people quietly online in a subreddit cheering people losing money. Kind of reminds me of all those guys that can't get dates, that go online and just hate women, right? The incel community. How is that? What's the difference here? I get it. Life's hard. Life's expensive. Real estate's expensive. But a bunch of people, and like, let's be honest, these are not multi-million-dollar homeowners. Tell me I'm generalizing, but these subreddit folks, they're probably people that don't own real estate and that kind of wish that they did. But man, I don't get that. Like, what's next? Like cheering the home invasion? Gosh, those people had the audacity to afford a home. I'm so glad, there's a home invasion there. Guys, I get it. And I want to be sympathetic. I really do. Toronto's an expensive city. Rents are high. Real estate prices are high. But this whole idea of cheering real estate losses, like, it's not like it's a billionaire that lost his fortune, which again, I wouldn't cheer for because I'm not that person. But like, somebody bought a house for $1.5 million for their family and they moved in with their children. And now, for whatever reason they have to move and they sold it for 1.2 and you're cheering that. All right. I guess I'm just getting old. So I'm not typecasting and saying that that's young buyers. That's not the connection that I was making here. The connection that I'm making is that 3 people messaged me. I've already spoken to 2 of them. Both of the people that I spoke to kept talking about what everyone else is saying in their age group, in their community. All my friends are saying to wait. All my friends are saying this is a bad idea. The fear out there among the young buyers is crazy. And I'm sorry to say, guys, I think misery loves company. I think there's a fear of your friend buying a place, moving in, being happy, and maybe the market does well and goes up because you're not doing that. I'm no psychologist, but I think that's just human nature, right? I don't think that's human nature, or I don't hope it is, but I think that's human nature. And I think that there's so much confusion and there's so much pressure for this next generation to get it right. It's really hard to make that decision. So what one of these guys said to me was, I'm not afraid of losing 3 to 5% on paper in the short term if I can lock in the 15 to 20% that the market's gone down. I think that makes sense. I think mathematically that makes a good investment. Now, some of the folks on YouTube are going to be like, well, the condo market's going to drop another 50%. Yeah, listen, I don't know what to say about that. The condo market is not healthy. It is not going to be for quite some time. But you live in it. You're not buying shares at Tesla. So if you go pay $500 for a condo that sold for $625 at the peak, and then you're living in it and you're enjoying it. And listen, I was a young man once and I lived downtown at 230 King Street and then I lived at 112 George. They're the best years of my life. And if I made a little less or a little bit more, it doesn't matter. It's where I met my wife. It's where I had my first kid. It's where me and my buddies used to hang out. There's something to be said for that. So you buy that $500,000 condo and it previously sold for $625,000. If your neighbor 2 floors up sells for $485,000 3 months from now, it's not the end of the world. And that was what this one guy was saying to me. And I don't know what he'll do, but I am really curious to see what the young buyers are going to do, because, this whole cheering spectator sport situation, and again, that's a $1.545 million house, it's a different situation. But what I saw in that article and what I'm hearing from some of the younger agents that work with a lot of the younger buyers, and I'll be honest, I don't work with a ton of younger buyers, so I was surprised by the 3 people, as I said, 2 of them that I've already talked to. But I was really surprised at how much they're sort of being pressured by their peers to not enter the market. And I'm sorry, I think it's that sort of misery loves company. So my advice is don't live in fear. I'm not going to tell you to buy. I'm not going to tell you to not buy. But I would say for those younger folks out there, I'm sorry for what you're going through, because man, there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of hate. And I can't imagine what that's like. I bought my first condo in 2005. I don't know. There was excitement. Friends were like, oh, cool, that's what you're doing. But like this is tough, man. For those listening, I'm holding up this piece of paper with this ridiculous headline. And that was kind of the feedback I got from those 3 young people that I talked to. So let's move on to something I'd like to think is more positive. I don't know how that last bit will go over. The last market segment, guys, that I am interested to look at is the 905. The 905. Durham, Halton, Peel, York, everything outside of Toronto. Now, I don't really sell real estate in those areas. I mean, my team does. We have a lot of people that are leaving the 416 to go to the 905. So we work with buyers out there. Don't do a ton of listings out there. But it's something that you've got to look at because it speaks to the overall market. And that's the theme here, in case you haven't noticed, is that I want to know what's happening in the overall market. Now, I want to go through some statistics with you. I kept saying, don't be afraid of the stats, and I haven't done that many of them, but we're going to get stats heavy right now, okay? 2018, September of 2018. I want to compare prices in a 3-year period to September of 2021. Toronto, Halton, Peel, York, and Durham. So from September of 2018 to September of 2021, the average home price in Toronto, 416, went up 26%. Halton, 46. Peel, 49.7. York, 50.4. And Durham, 64.9%. That's the 905. That is September of 2018 to September of 2021. Now, here's what's crazy, absolutely crazy. We're going to go from September of 2018 to February of 2022. So that's market peak. This is 3 years and 5 months. Toronto went up 40.1%. York went up 75.7%. Halton went up 79.1%. Peel region, 81.3%. Are you ready for this? Durham went up 109.4%. That's in 3.5 years. The average home price from September of 2018 to February of 2022 in Durham region went up 109.4%. I'm going to come back to that. Now, why? The first reason I would say is the home prices were pretty good. So at the time, and let's just go on an absolute basis here, the average home price in September of 2018 in Toronto was $864, and in Durham it was $587. Go out there and buy a cheaper house. You can commute. You can move out there. The thing I love about out there, so to speak, everything is subdivision-esque, is that they designed it from scratch. It's not like Toronto, which was sort of built up over 150 years. There's so many parks and community centers and green spaces. It's just like, and yeah, you can't really, walk to get your coffee. But if you're raising a family, it's so much more out there. So folks started doing that. You did have investors that did it. Yes, people would start speculating, absolutely. But during COVID, everyone wanted to move out. I had people that moved out of the city. I had people that said, well, we're going to be working from home. People that moved to like ski communities. People that are living in like Roncesvalles, and now they live up on a mountaintop, right? I wouldn't call it a mountain. Snow Valley. what's the other one? Horseshoe Valley. Horseshoe Valley is what I was thinking of, or Collingwood, right? But that's what happened, right? All aboard the hype train. So now listen to this. I feel like I need to go over those numbers again, but I'm not going to. Now listen to this. From the peak of February 2022, and we're going to use June of 2025 because I don't want to use the depressed summer numbers. But let's do this. Let's look at February 2022 to June of 2025. Toronto is down 6.5%. Next on the list is more than triple the same rate. Halton's down 20.9%. York is down 21.8%. Peel is down 22.9%. And Durham region is down 27.4%. Now, the irony, of course, is that the price is way higher than that September 2018 figure. No one cares. It was 7 years ago. That was ancient history. Some of the people watching this were in high school at the time, right? So a few points here. First of all, Toronto's only down 6.5%. The other areas are down between 21 and 27%. Yeah, 416, major metropolitan areas, they hold their value pretty well. So you think about it, if you're in Toronto and you bought at the absolute peak of the market, absolute peak, on average you're down 6.5%. It's not great, but it's not killing you either. If you're down, if you own a condo, you're down more, right? If you own a segment that has outpaced the market, okay, you're down less. But the other four segments are down between 21 and 27%. So we talked about Durham region up 109.4% from September 2018 to February of 2022, and now down 27.4. The one that went up the most went down the most. But guys, what I am looking at this fall is what is going to happen in these market segments. Because as the 416 continues to slowly claw back, the other four segments have continued to decline. Now, on a relative basis, the 905 is going down as the 416 goes up, relatively speaking. So the average in TREB is 17.4% decline. And that average is made up of 20.9%, 22.9%, 21.8%, 27.4% in the negative, and then the only 6.5% in Toronto. So I'm looking at these segments, not because I work out there, not because I've got clients that are looking right now to buy out there, our team does, but because I want to know at what point does the 905 come back. It played such a crucial role on the way up. It was due to COVID. It was due to speculation. It was due to low home prices, low interest rates. 109.4% increase in 3.5 years is absolutely ridiculous. And anybody, in hindsight is going to say, well, we saw this coming. But what's going to happen from here? So I don't think it comes back this fall. My question is, will it continue to decline? Now, I said in last week's podcast, we're going to have the busiest fall since 2021. I'm not talking in terms of sales, listings, activity, price activity. Like, I am talking about in the core. I am a core agent. That is where most of my business is. But it doesn't mean that I'm not paying attention to this major market segment in the 905. Needed a breath there. These are my 5 market segments I'm watching in rewind. 416 entry level. Move up, forever home, 3 million plus. 1 bed, 1 bath condos. The young buyers who are under so much pressure to get it right or to follow the herd. And the 905. Now, I could do a podcast on all the stats that I'm watching. I think that'd probably be pretty boring. If you want more information, I mentioned on TorontoRealtyBlog.com, I did a 2-part blog series right after Labor Day, 1 part on Monday, 1 part on Thursday, where I asked the burning questions. The questions that I asked were about sales. They're about inventory, which is active listings and new listings. They're about prices. They're about the resale condo market. They're about the non-existent pre-construction condo market. But in this podcast here, I think we've identified 5 market segments that we really want to look at. We are swamped this fall. We are personally having the busiest fall since 2021. Part of the reason I thought, and I mentioned in last week's podcast, which many people on YouTube disagreed with, that we're going to have the busiest market. Again, not talking about necessarily sales. You could pick any number. Is it absorption rate? Is it the inventory? Is it the prices? I just look at what we've done. We spent the entire summer preparing listings for sale. It's busy. We are perfecting. My phone's blowing up right now. I've got my contractor going back and forth between all these different properties. We're getting things ready. The moral of that story, guys, the cream rises to the top. In this fall market, you will see the A properties move. The B properties can have a hard time. The C's, don't even talk about it. And the funny thing is, in 2022, they were all getting multiple offers. But that was what I mentioned in the first point with the entry level freehold, the semis that we had in the spring. Some of those were B's. They were a grind. They were tough. If you want to be successful this fall, you have to make your property the best in its class, and that's what we've been striving to do. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Last Honest Realtor. If you have any questions for me or any comments, throw them in the YouTube comments section below. Please remember to like, comment, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I do appreciate you guys being here today and watching or listening with me. So folks, thank you so much, and we will see you here next time on The Last Honest Realtor.